Dad gave the landscaping business I built to my older brother because he has kids to feed, so I walked away and watched it all burn. Now he's explaining his strategies to the IRS. Alright Reddit. I just lived through some family drama that would make Jerry Springer look like a warm-up act. My dad basically took the $1.8 million landscaping empire I built from scratch and handed it to my older brother like it was some kind of participation trophy. And why? Because, as he put it, Vincent has mouths to feed. So I walked away. But that wasn't the end, not even close. Here's what went down. Let me, a 33-year-old guy, paint the picture. My dad, Antonio, is 65, old-school Italian, the kind of a guy who's been breaking his back doing landscape work since before I was born. Picture the most stereotypical blue-collar dude you know, permanent dirt under his fingernails, always smells like grass clippings, and can operate an excavator like it's a freaking extension of his body. Ever since I could walk, I wanted to be out there with him. While other kids were glued to Xbox, I was learning about soil pH and irrigation systems like some kind of tiny landscaping prodigy. My older brother Vincent, total opposite. He's 39 now and spent our entire childhood acting like yard work was beneath him. This dude wouldn't even help mow our own lawn because it would ruin his image with the prep school crowd. He'd tell his friends our dad was a landscape architect, because God forbid anyone find out our dad actually got his hands dirty for a living. But here's where things get twisted. When Vincent was 15, he got into a nasty car accident. Some drunk idiot T-boned him coming home from a party. He was in the hospital for 3 months, shattered leg, internal injuries to works. Doctors weren't sure he'd ever walk normally again. Our family was terrified, and guess who became his personal cheerleader during those months? Yep, Dad. Dad spent every free minute at that hospital bringing Vincent his favorite food, helping with his physical therapy, being super. One night, Vincent had a panic attack about whether he'd ever walk again. Dad stayed with him until 4 a.m. holding his hand and telling him everything would be okay. I was only 9, but I remember Mom crying in the kitchen the next morning telling me that Dad had never been that gentle with anyone before. That moment, it broke something open in Dad that never closed back up. From then on, Vincent could do no wrong in his eyes. Even when Vincent went back to treating Dad's profession like it was community service, Dad still acted like he walked on water. I figured out pretty early that I was always going to be playing for second place in this family Olympics. There was this one time in high school I made varsity wrestling as a sophomore, huge deal. Our school had a legendary program. When I told my parents, Mom was thrilled. Dad just gave me one of those distracted, "That's great, son," while scrolling through his phone. My first big match was on a Saturday night. I was hyped. Mom had to work a double at the nursing home, so I was counting on Dad being there. But when I asked him, he got all weird and said he'd promised to help Vincent move into his college dorm. Mom wasn't having it. She told him flat out that Vincent's dorm could wait. This was important. Dad reluctantly agreed. But the night before the match, Vincent pulled his classic manipulation trick. Started going on about how this was his Independence Day, how he'd been counting on Dad's truck and their father-son bonding time. Dad folded like a lawn chair in a hurricane. So there I was, getting my ass handed to me by this beast from the rival school, scanning the stands, looking for his face. He never showed. The worst part wasn't even losing. It was that split second between rounds when I looked up, expecting to see him cheering, and found empty bleachers where my family should have been. My coach saw me looking. He patted my shoulder and said, "Sometimes you gotta fight alone, kid." That hit harder than any takedown. I texted Mom afterward. She called me immediately, panicking, thinking I'd been hurt. Nope, Dad was at State University playing furniture to move her for his golden child. I walked into the house to a full-blown screaming match. Mom was livid, demanding to know where the hell he'd been. Vincent strolls in with pizza and drinks like he hadn't just wrecked our entire night. When Mom called him out, this entitled jerk shrugged and said his wrestling thing wasn't that big a deal anyway. The audacity still gets me heated. I was 16, just got humiliated in front of half the school, and my own brother acted like I'd lost a video game. And Dad, he defended him, said it was just a high school match. There'd be more, but Vincent needed help with this major life transition. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I smiled, said I understood, then went to my room and punched a hole in the drywall. Mom found me later, icing my knuckles. She didn't say a word, just hugged me. Sometimes that's all you need. Someone who gets how screwed up things are without needing it explained. And the pattern continued. For years, Dad would try to act fair whenever Mom blew up at him, but he always slipped back into Team Vincent mode after high school. I went to community college for landscape design and horticulture. Vincent went off to his fancy 4-year university. When I graduated, I came home and started working with Dad. I was 23, full of energy, big ideas. I wanted to take his little operation and make it matter. When I joined, Dad had 3 guys with beat-up trucks doing lawn maintenance for maybe 40 clients, but I had vision. I got us certified for commercial irrigation, started bidding on municipal contracts, reached out to property managers and luxury developers. And now, I've got to introduce 2 people who became crucial to this story. First, Big Mike Torino, 6'4" beast of a foreman. He'd been working for Dad since I was in middle school. Mike could install a complex irrigation system blindfolded. He wasn't afraid to tell clients exactly what they needed to hear. He became like a second father to me, taught me everything: heavy equipment, managing crews, reading people. When clients tried to shift scope or contractors lowballed us, Mike would stare them down and say, "That's not how this works." Chief Lenders Danny Castellano, crazy smart engineer who left the corporate world to chase his passion: landscape design. We met on a job he contracted us for, and I eventually convinced Dad to bring him on full-time. Danny designed outdoor spaces that looked like something out of a magazine. Within 2 years, we'd quintupled our client base, started landing contracts Dad wouldn't even dream of bidding on. I'll never forget our first major commercial win, a $180,000 landscape renovation at Meridian Business Park. Dad thought I was nuts for bidding that high, but we finished 2 weeks early and $15,000 under budget. The property manager called it the most professional operation he'd ever worked with. That one job led to 5 more. Over the next decade, I poured my entire soul into transforming Dad's lawn service into a full-blown landscape empire. We went from $120,000 in revenue to just shy of $1.8 million last year. We employed 35 people, ran 18 trucks, held contracts with half the county's office parks. Our residential division handled renovations that cost more than some cars. Dad still liked doing small residential jobs, but I handled literally everything else. Commercial bids, crew management, permits, marketing, finances, equipment. I was clocking 70-hour weeks split between job sites and the office. This business became my life's work. Other contractors started treating us differently. Industry meets that used to ignore us. Now people came over to ask how we did it. Our crews showed up on time. Our gear stayed running. Clients kept coming back. I built systems for everything: maintenance schedules, quality control checklists, client follow-ups, stuff that seemed obvious to me but no one else was doing. But while I was building, Vincent was scheming. Every few months, he'd swing by during a visit, always made a show of being impressed. "Enzo, this is incredible," he'd say in front of Dad. "You've really built something special." What I didn't know was that afterward, he'd pull Dad aside for a little whisper session. Mom overheard. "Wanted a barbecue. Enzo's doing great," Vincent said. "But honestly, Dad, I'm worried about his leadership potential. He's a great worker bee, but running a business takes real strategy. When you're ready to step back, you need someone with management experience." This MF was stroking my ego to my face while quietly sabotaging me behind closed doors. He threw around corporate buzzwords like synergy and optimization, thinking spreadsheets were the same as managing crews in 95 heat. He didn't get it. Half our success came from relationships, trust we built by showing up, solving problems, staying accountable. Big Mike always said it best. Antonio built a lawn service. Enzo built a freaking empire. Danny made sure clients knew who actually made their visions real. But you build something beautiful, and there's always someone lurking, ready to take it. And last year, it all started falling apart. Dad filed for divorce. They'd been arguing, more money stuff. Dad's obsession with living while he's young. The marriage cracked under the pressure. It sucked, but honestly, I saw it coming from a mile away. What I didn't see coming was how quickly Dad jumped into the dating scene like some kind of middle-aged predator. We're talking about a 65-year-old man suddenly acting like he was some landscaping mogul playboy, chasing women young enough to be his daughters, and each new girlfriend more interested in his newfound wealth than in anything remotely resembling a real relationship. The transformation was honestly embarrassing. Dad started buying designer clothes, got his teeth whitened, bought a freaking Corvette. It was like he was having some kind of identity crisis in 4K slow motion. Big Mike started cracking jokes about it. "Your old man's having a midlife crisis." At 65, he'd say while we were loading equipment. Then he'd shake his head and mutter, "That's not midlife. That's an end-life crisis." Even Danny noticed the shift, commenting on how Dad had started showing up to job sites in brand new clothes, talking about upgrading his lifestyle. What really pissed me off, though, was watching him throw away 35 years of marriage for this delusional fantasy. Mom had busted her ass supporting his dreams. When he was just some guy with a pickup truck and a lawnmower, she handled the books, took calls at all hours, helped with payroll during tight months. And now that the business was successful, he was tossing her aside like she'd been the anchor holding him back the whole time. Then, 5 months ago, Dad called both Vincent and me for what he said was an important family meeting. We showed up at his new condo, this pretentious glass and steel place that looked like it belonged in a magazine for douchebags with more money than sense. The atmosphere was tense before anyone even said a word. Dad cleared his throat and dropped the first bomb. "I have something important to tell you both. Stephanie and I got married last weekend." Vincent and I just stared at each other like we'd been slapped. Stephanie, his latest girlfriend, a 29-year-old former fitness influencer who'd been working her magic on Dad for the past 6 months. "With all this, you deserve to enjoy your success. Life is too short to settle," he said. You got married without telling us? I asked, my head spinning, trying to wrap my brain around what I was hearing. Dad immediately got defensive. We wanted something intimate. You know how Stephanie, it feels about big crowds and drama. Yeah, I knew exactly how Stephanie felt. She was calculating as hell, but Dad was too whipped to see past the fake tits and Instagram filters. The woman had never worked a real job a day in her life, spent most of her time filming half-assed workout videos and selling protein powder to bored housewives, but she knew one thing: divorced men with money are easy targets. I'd met her twice. Both times, she spent most of the conversation asking questions about the business finances, pretending to be interested in landscaping. Red flags everywhere. Dad was thinking with his dick instead of his brain. And that wasn't even the worst part of the announcement. I've also been thinking about succession planning for the business, he said, getting all serious and business-like. My heart started pounding. After 10 years of building this company side by side, I thought this was it. I thought he was finally going to offer me a full partnership, or at least start transitioning ownership to me instead. He looked me dead in the eyes and dropped the bomb. Enzo, I've decided that since you're not married and don't have children, you won't be inheriting the business. I'm giving it entirely to Vincent. I couldn't breathe. Big Mike always joked I'd have a heart attack from stress someday, but I never thought it would be from my own father stabbing me in the chest. What the underscore? I managed to whisper. Vincent has a family, Dad continued, his wife Jennifer and their 3 kids. They need the financial security. Plus he can take the business to new heights with his corporate management background. I just stared at him in disbelief. Dad, I built this business. With you, I've dedicated my entire adult life to it. How can you can continue working in your current position under Vincent's management? He interrupted. But the ownership goes to your brother. That's final. No discussion. No gratitude. No acknowledgement of everything I had sacrificed, of the blood, sweat, and 10 years I'd poured into this company. Just cold. I turned to Vincent, hoping he'd speak up, hoping for even a sliver of brotherly decency. Instead, this underscore sat there with a smug little smile, like he'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. Hey Enzo, he said, all fake concern. I know this is a lot to process, but I think we can make this work really well. Your technical expertise combined with my strategic vision, we could really take things to the next level. His condescending tone made my blood boil. This was the guy who spent 15 years treating the family business like it was community service. And now he was acting like he was doing me a favor, letting me work for him. This is complete underscore. I snapped, my voice cracking. I've given everything to this business. What about my future, my dreams? Dad's response: life isn't fair, Enzo. Family comes first, and Vincent has a family to provide for. Vincent leaned forward, fake sympathy plastered on his face. Look, brother, I know you're emotional right now, but running a business isn't just about being good at the work. It's about strategy, finance, long-term planning. This coming from the guy whose idea of long-term planning was deciding what to order for lunch. I wanted to ask him to name 3 pieces of equipment we owned, or explain how irrigation zones worked, but what was the point? Dad had already made up his mind, probably with plenty of advice from his new wife, who saw dollar signs every time she glanced at our financial statements. This wasn't just about the business. It was about a lifetime of being second choice, of having my work minimized, of never being the favorite son no matter what I accomplished. Fine, I said quietly, standing up, if that's how you want to play this. I walked out of that pretentious condo knowing I'd never step foot in it again. As I reached my truck, I could hear Vincent through the open window talking about helping me adjust to the new structure, like I was some problem employee, not the guy who built everything he was about to inherit. The drive home was a blur, just pure rage and betrayal. 10 years of my life gone, building something incredible only to have it handed to my lazy brother because he knocked up his college girlfriend that night. I called Mum, told her everything. She was shocked. I never thought he'd do something this cruel, she said, her voice trembling. To give the entire business to Vincent instead of splitting it fairly, it's unconscionable. I would have been fine with a 60-40th split, I told her through gritted teeth, even 70-30ths in his favor. But to cut me out completely, after everything I've done. She was quiet for a moment. Then her voice changed stronger, more resolve. You know what? Maybe this is a blessing in disguise. You've got 10 years of experience, incredible skills. Every contractor in the county respects you. Why don't you start your own business? Half those clients would probably follow you anyway. Her words lit something inside me. If Dad thought he could toss me aside like yesterday's grass clippings, he was about to find out how wrong he was. I'd been smart with my money over the past decade, saved over $125,000, lived in a modest apartment, drove a 10-year-old truck, reinvested everything back into equipment and certifications. It was more than enough to start my own operation. The very next morning I started making calls. The first call: Big Mike. Mike, I need to talk to you. Can you meet me for coffee? When I told him what happened, that 6 feet 4 inches beast of a man looked like he was going to punch through the wall. Those underscore, he growled. After everything you've done for that business, you know what, Enzo, I'm done with them. If you're starting your own company, I'm coming with you. Next call was to Danny. His reaction was even more intense. Are you freaking kidding me? He exploded. Vincent couldn't design a flower bed if his life depended on it. That business is going to crash and burn without you running it. Danny, I'm starting my own company. You in? Hell yes, I'm in. When do we start? Then I started reaching out to our biggest clients, the property management companies, the municipal contracts, the high-end residential customers I had personally brought in over the years. I told them the truth. Dad was giving the business to my brother. I was stepping away and starting something new. The response? Overwhelming. Client after client told me the same thing. They were loyal to me. They worked with me. They trusted me. Most of them had never even met Vincent. We work with you, not your father, said Tom Richardson, the facilities manager for the biggest office complex in town. If you're starting your own business, we're following you. Vincent's a nice enough guy, but he doesn't know about landscape management. But the most satisfying call, Patricia Wells, Grandview Properties, managed 8 commercial properties, about $340,000 a year in revenue. When I explained the situation, she was furious. That's absolutely ridiculous, she said. You've been our primary contact for 4 years. You respond to emergencies at all hours. Your crews are the best we've ever worked with. Of course we're coming with you. Within 1 week, I had commitments from 70% of our commercial client base. These weren't just customers. These were relationships I built through years of showing up early, staying late, and giving a damn when nobody else did. Word spread fast. Several of our best crew leaders reached out privately. They saw the writing on the wall. Vincent in charge, me gone. That business didn't stand a chance. 2 weeks later, I submitted my resignation letter. The conversation with Dad. No, clear, you can't just abandon the business now, he screamed. We have contracts, equipment, payments, payroll. I'm giving you the standard 2 weeks, I said calmly. That's more than you gave me when you handed over my life's work to someone who's never managed a crew or touched a skid steer. This is sabotage, Vincent chimed in from the background. They were tag-teaming the call. This is capitalism, I replied. Good luck figuring out how irrigation systems work. The desperation in their voices. Almost satisfying. A part of me still felt bad for Dad, but he'd made his choice. Now he'd have to live with it. Big Mike submitted his notice the same day. So did Danny. 4 of our best crew leaders followed. Then 8 more employees. The exodus was fast and devastating. Starting Torino Landscape Solutions, I named it after Big Mike because the man deserved that recognition. Was the scariest and most satisfying thing I've ever done. We found the perfect shop space. Bigger than Dad's, better location, plenty of room. Big Mike helped me score deals on used equipment from old contacts. Danny designed our office and created a portfolio that looked more professional than anything Dad's operation had ever produced. And the clients, they kept their promises. Within 1 month, we had enough contracts signed to keep us busy for 6 months straight. My phone was ringing constantly with new inquiries. Meanwhile, I heard through the grapevine that Dad's business was imploding. Vincent had moved back from his suburban paradise, expecting to walk into a smoothly running operation. But this dude knew nothing about equipment, maintenance, nothing about managing crews, nothing about the relationships that kept commercial clients happy. I heard from Luis Mendoza, one of our suppliers, that Vincent had called him in a panic because 2 mowers had broken down in the same week. Apparently, Vincent didn't know that equipment needed regular maintenance beyond just putting gas in it. He asked me if we could loan him a crew until he hired new guys. Luis told me while laughing. I told him that's not how equipment suppliers work. He seemed genuinely confused about the difference between buying equipment and renting crews. What I didn't expect was how quickly Vincent would start trying to improve the business through some creative accounting practices. About 2 months after I left, Maria Gonzalez, our former office manager who'd stayed with Dad out of loyalty, called me up one evening. She sounded stressed as hell. Enzo, I need to talk to someone about what's going on at the shop. Can we meet for coffee? I don't feel comfortable talking about this on the phone. The next day, Maria looked exhausted. When we met at a little diner downtown, she'd been Dad's office manager for 6 years, handling invoices, payroll, and client communications. She knew the business inside and out. Vincent's doing some things that don't seem right, she said quietly, looking around to make sure no one was listening. He's been marking up invoices way beyond our usual rates, telling clients it's for premium management services or strategic oversight fees. My stomach dropped. How much are we talking about? He added a 30% markup to the Patterson office complex job. That's an extra $15,000 on a $50,000 contract. When I asked him about it, he said it was standard practice for executive management oversight. What else? Maria pulled out a manila folder. He's been creating invoices for consulting services from something called Strategic Landscape Solutions LLC. I looked it up. It's registered to his home address. $2,500 a month for operational consulting. This MF was literally paying himself fake consulting fees out of the business account. There's more, Maria continued. He's been using the company credit card for personal stuff, expensive dinners, his kids' private school tuition, even a family vacation to Disney World. When I questioned it, he said it was client entertainment and strategic planning retreats. I was furious but tried to stay calm. Maria, why are you telling me this? Because I care about your dad, and this is going to destroy everything he built. Vincent doesn't know I kept copies of everything, but I did. I've got invoices, credit card statements, bank transfers, all of it. She slid the folder across the table. I can't stay there much longer. My conscience won't let me be part of this, but I thought you should know what's happening to the business you helped build. I drove home with Maria's folder burning a hole in my passenger seat. Part of me wanted to march straight to Dad's office and shove the evidence in his face, but Big Mike had taught me something valuable over the years. When you're going to take someone down, you better make sure they can't get back up. That night I spread everything out on my kitchen table. The documentation was damning. Vincent had been systematically looting the business for months, inflated invoices totaling over $95,000 in fraudulent charges to clients, $42,500 in fake consulting fees paid to his shell company, $31,000 in personal expenses charged to the business credit card, payroll irregularities where he'd been paying himself overtime for management duties. I called my lawyer, Jim Rodriguez, first thing Monday morning. Jim had helped me set up my business and had been practicing commercial law for 20 years. Enzo, this is serious fraud, he said after reviewing the documents. Invoice inflation, self-dealing, misuse of corporate funds. Vincent could be looking at criminal charges and civil liability. What's the best way to handle this? Document everything. Don't confront them directly and let me handle the legal strategy. I'm going to recommend we file a complaint with the district attorney's office and notify the IRS about the unreported income from his shell company. Over the next few weeks, more evidence kept coming my way. Luis Mendoza, one of our longtime suppliers, reached out after hearing I'd started my own business. Enzo, I've been wanting to talk to someone about what's happening with your dad's company, he said when I met him at his equipment yard. Vincent's been demanding cash kickbacks on our invoices. Says it's standard practice for preferred vendor status. How much? 10% of every invoice. Last month alone, that was $3,000. I've been paying it because I need the business, but it's killing my margins. And honestly, it feels dirty as hell. Luis had been supplying parts and equipment to Dad's business for 8 years. He was as honest as they come, the kind of guy who'd drive 50 miles to deliver an emergency part on a weekend. I've got receipts for all the cash payments, Luis continued, and I recorded our last conversation where he threatened to cancel our contracts if I didn't keep paying. More documentation for the growing file. The most damaging evidence came from Sarah Kim, an account manager at Westfield Properties, one of our biggest commercial clients that had stayed with Dad's company. We need to discuss your father's billing practices, she said when she called my office. We've been getting invoices that don't match the work being performed. I agreed to meet with her, knowing this could be the smoking gun. We contracted for basic landscape maintenance on our office parks, Sarah explained, showing me recent invoices, but we're being charged for executive site inspections, strategic vegetation analysis, and premium quality assurance services. Vincent told our facilities manager these were industry standard charges. The invoices were 40% higher than what Dad had historically charged for the same services. Vincent was essentially stealing from clients by making up bullshit charges and hoping they wouldn't question it. Sarah, were you satisfied with the quality of work under these new charges? She laughed bitterly. The work has been terrible. Half the crews don't show up on time. The equipment breaks down constantly and nobody seems to know what they're doing. We're paying premium prices for amateur service. Would you be willing to file a formal complaint if needed? Absolutely. We're already considering canceling our contracts. The only reason we haven't is out of respect for your father. Meanwhile, my business was absolutely crushing it. We'd grown to 28 employees, had a 6-month backlog of work, and clients were referring new customers faster than we could handle. Them DIY's designs were getting featured in industry publications, and we'd won 3 major municipal contracts. The contrast with Dad's operation was stark. Word on the street was that they were hemorrhaging clients. Crews were quitting regularly, and equipment was breaking down because Vincent had no idea how to maintain it properly. But what Vincent didn't know was that his days were numbered. In November, Jim Rodriguez filed our formal complaint with the district attorney's office. The documentation was so extensive and well organized that they opened an investigation immediately. 2 weeks later, the IRS received an anonymous tip about unreported income and fraudulent business expenses. Funny how that works. The final nail in the coffin came when Maria called me in early December. Enzo, I just gave my 2 weeks notice, she said, but I wanted to let you know. Vincent asked me to delete all the financial records from before July when he took over. He said they were cluttering up the system and not relevant to future operations. Did you do it? Hell no. I told him I'd need written authorization from your father and he got really nervous. Vincent was trying to destroy evidence. The desperation was showing. Maria, one more favor. Can you make copies of any recent records before you leave? Already done. I've got everything through last week backed up on a flash drive. This is the last thing I can do for your dad. Maybe when this all comes out he'll realize what Vincent really is. Christmas came and went. I spent it with my girlfriend Sarah and her family, finally feeling like I had a real future to look forward to. My business was thriving. I was planning to propose in the spring. And for the first time in years, I wasn't thinking about Dad's company every damn day. That changed on January 15th when Jim Rodriguez called with news. Enzo, the DAS office executed search warrants on your father's business and Vincent's home this morning. They seized computers, financial records, and bank statements. Vincent was arrested on charges of wire fraud, embezzlement, and filing false tax returns. After months of waiting, the hammer had finally dropped. What about my dad? As far as we know, he's not being charged. The evidence suggests Vincent acted alone and concealed his activities from your father. But the business is definitely going to face civil penalties and client lawsuits. The local news picked up the story that evening. Local business owner arrested for fraud was the headline. With a mugshot of Vincent looking like he'd aged 10 years overnight, the article laid out the basic facts: systematic invoice fraud, embezzlement of company funds, and tax evasion totaling over $275,000. The reporter mentioned that several clients were considering civil suits to recover overcharged fees. My phone started ringing with calls from industry people who'd heard the news. Most were shocked, but a few longtime contractors said they'd suspected something was off when Vincent took over. 2 days later, Dad called me. His voice sounded broken. "Enzo, son, I need to apologize. You were right. I should have listened to you and your mother. I should have recognized what you built for us." I didn't know what to say. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I just felt sad for him. Vincent's lawyer says he could face 5 years in federal prison. My business is ruined, and I don't know how I'm going to pay back the clients he defrauded. And how does that concern me, father? I know. I just thought maybe you could. No, maybe you learned now what happens when you bet on the wrong horse. Son, I am so sorry. Apologize for yourself. I am good. That was the last conversation we had. The business ended up declaring bankruptcy within 3 months. Dad lost everything. The shop, the equipment in his house had to be sold to cover legal fees and civil settlements. Vincent pleaded guilty to avoid trial and got sentenced to 3 years in federal prison plus 5 years probation. His wife filed for divorce while he was awaiting sentencing, taking the kids and moving back to her parents' house. The judge ordered him to pay $275,000 in restitution, but since he spent most of what he stole, that money is never getting recovered today. Torino Landscape Solutions employs 55 people and generates over $2.8 million in annual revenue. We've expanded into commercial snow removal and have clients in 3 counties. I proposed to Sarah in March and she said yes. We're planning a wedding for next fall and talking about starting a family. I smile when I think about teaching my future kids about the value of building something with your own hands. Dad ended up taking a job with one of our competitors, just a crew leader position. But at least he's working. Stephanie divorced him the minute his money dried up, which surprised absolutely no one. The most satisfying part wasn't Vincent's downfall. Was seeing justice served and knowing that the clients he defrauded got some measure of accountability. Several of them ended up becoming clients of mine, telling me they respected how I handled the whole situation professionally. Big Mike always says it best. Your dad taught you the trade, but life taught you the business. Now you're teaching both to everyone else. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if Dad had just treated me fairly from the beginning. But then I look around at the business I've built and the life I've created, and I realize their betrayal was actually the greatest gift they could have given me. Sometimes the best revenge isn't getting even. It's just being better than them at everything they thought they could take away from you.